Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today we're going to continue and probably finish up our discussion about the role of tension management in elections. And so up to now, we've been talking a bit about how tension plays out before an election happens, so during the whole campaign process, what actually happens during the election itself and the tabulation of votes. And so today it's kind of like the day to say, well, what happens after all the results are in? So what should happen tension-wise, what tends to happen tension-wise, well, what's really going on. So to get that underway, I thought I'd go ahead and just share with you guys what is happening in the state of Arizona, just in case your TV sets haven't been TV sets. How old am I? Your media, wherever you're getting your news from, hasn't already informed you. For the first time in many years, Arizona finds itself with a Democratic governor, a Democratic Secretary of State, a Democratic, maybe a Democratic Attorney General. That race is still pending, and yeah, so it's kind of a big change because for many years now, Arizona has pretty much been considered to be a Republican stronghold. So now it's switching, but if you look at all the races that have gone on here, pretty much they're all 50-50, maybe the swing is a little bit more for certain things, but we seem to have a state that is very evenly divided. And so the question for you guys is, what do you think's going on with tension now among the people who are happy with the way things turned out? What's going on with the tension of the people who aren't so happy that things turned out the way they did? And if you were their consultant, how would you advise them to move forward, again, from a tension management perspective? So based on where you predict their tension to be right now, where do you think they should be? How would you move them there? So I'll throw that out there as the starting question. Let any one of you who wants to throw out an idea, go right ahead and do that. So anybody got any thoughts? This would involve somebody unmuting. So otherwise, I'll just kind of jump into what my thoughts are around here.
No, I'll just throw in 2 cents. I think that's 50-50 everywhere. I mean, I live in a pretty blue state, Connecticut. But even here, except for the governor race, everything was pretty much, real close. And I think it's been really close almost everywhere in the country.
Yeah. And so I think that's interesting. I'm sure there's a few places that were like just givens when an election like this is happening right now. But I think that you're right. You're seeing a country that's very much divided. So what does that division end up doing in terms of tension? Anybody thoughts on this, on that one?
Yeah, I think we're in a state of continuous tension.
Okay, tell
Um,
us more about that.
that's just, I'm talking off the top of my head. I haven't had a chance to really think about this yet. But I mean, what it feels like and what I see is a state of continuous um, tension that, um, from a consulting standpoint, what I would want to do was encourage more dialogue. Um, uh, I mean, I think tension, ongoing tension, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with having. I think it's healthy to have two parties with divergent viewpoints that can influence one another.
Yep.
But in order to get things done, I think that there needs to be some dialogue about learning to see how other people see things and understand how other people see things so that you can enlarge your point of view. And so um, from a tension management standpoint, it's about opening up and expanding, helping people open up and expand their horizons around perspectives. So
Okay.
that's as far as I'm ready to go right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's excellent. Great. Yeah. And so I think that what kind of came up for me as you were saying that was this whole spiral dynamic thing we looked at many months ago now. But it just told me that every time a culture, I guess, a civilization is doing another cycle up the spiral, there must come a place in time of balance. So you've got half the population that are in the we'll do this, the down spiral state of affairs, and another half that is in the up spiral state of affairs. So it's like one half of the population is trying to push things to progress, evolve, whatever, and the other one is saying, well, let's just hold it back, let's hang on, let's be careful, let's be more thoughtful and more prudent. So to Kathy's point, I agree that a balance of perspectives can help you to advance more, let me say, more thoughtfully, more reliably, in a way that reduces the amount of friction. But that can't happen if if the halves polarize instead of find a way to get together on whatever it is that's going on. All right, so thoughts about that, or yeah, go
So
right.
see, yeah, I fear that there is a lack of desire for togetherness,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that from that tension management perspective, that it's all centered around this struggle and fight for power.
All right.
And you know, when you introduce that thought, I thought about Frederick Douglass's quote about power concedes nothing. Uh, you know, and it's just I just think that politically, I think that that's where this struggle is centered.
Mm-hmm.
He says power concedes nothing without a demand, never did, and it never will. And I
Right.
think that that's what we grapple with, for
Yeah.
whatever we perceive that power can do for us.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's sort of the perspective that I have on that.
That's really very good. And so again, we have this mindset. If we go back to pride-based leadership, do you guys remember a diagram where I talk about the inside of every corporation, there are two forces at play? And so these two forces, one is a force about expansion, growing and gaining, and the other force is about containing the organization. So we talk about things that are a little bit more transformational and some other things that are going to be a little bit more transactional. So for example, in a corporate setting, the powers that be can say, we want to expand to blah, 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 and we want to come out with this product and this service, and we want to do this, and we want to blah, blah, blah. And they just kind of rattle off this whole pie in the sky sort of list of intentions that they hold as goals or whatever. Well, meanwhile, you've got other people in the organization who are saying, like, that's all fine and dandy, and I don't want to be the cloud on your parade, but we have limits to what we have in terms of resources. We've only got so much staff. We've only got so much in terms of facilities. We've only got so much in terms of capital. It's great that you want, but we have to do things in a way that makes it all very manageable. And so, can you guys hear inside of an organization, it's easy to see that both those dynamics are always present. Yep. Yeah, and so it's like we don't want to get rid of one of those. Can you imagine what would happen if the people who are all about expansion and growth and all those build the organization, etc. What if they suddenly decided to completely get rid of all the people that are focused on the transactional side of things, that are looking at the money and the resources and other factors that are there, logical negative assessment. What do you think happens if you actually got rid of all that? Anybody want to unmute and tell me, what do you think the outcome is if we get rid of those conservative voices?
I think you lose the opportunity to learn um, and move in a way that well, I mean, that allows inclusion, obviously. But it removes the kind of check and balances and
Mhm.
check and balance. And I think that transformation still needs to occur,
Yeah.
but it needs to occur in such a way that the short term and the long term can be reconciled.
Exactly right. So this idea about it being thoughtful, prudent, calculated, well managed, all those sorts of things end up being, as Kathy said, this sort of checks and balances. How many companies can we think of that grew too fast and suddenly became almost impossible to manage, unwieldy, unfocused, blah, blah, blah. And that ends up being its demise. So sometimes if you've got too much of the visionary energy, too much of the growth and expansion and possibility thinking that is not balanced with someone saying like, well, we're starting from where we're starting from. So we have to be able to take inventory. We have to be thoughtful and prudent and careful and cautious and all those good sorts of conservative sorts of words that come into play. So now let's reverse that. Let's say that all of the energy was about this idea about managing and containing and controlling and whatever the hell the case may be, but there was no real voice of the vision. What does expansion look like? What does the growth really look at? So if we get rid of the visionaries, if we get rid of those types of thinkers, and instead of an organization that's completely populated with the idea about the transactional sorts of things, the conservative side of things, what do you think happens in the long run? Are we going to,
It's
yep,
devolution is what I call it,
yeah,
you know.
devolution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, so I want to look at the extremes and say, all right, well, let's for just a second imagine what would happen if we actually gave full power to just one of those two perspectives. Yeah, there'd be a certain population that would be happy, at least in the short run, and there would be a certain segment of the population that would be miserable, at least for the short run. But the long-term viability of either of those extremes is poor. So ultimately, if we really want to grow, we want to expand and simultaneously be thoughtful and prudent, we need to find this place in the middle. And so that's why I've been very happy to see one of the things going on. I make no bones about it. I'm as independent as you can get. I'm issue driven, not party driven. So I'm kind of smack dab in the middle, which means I get to watch everybody. Find disappointment in all directions I face. But nevertheless, I thought it was interesting when they said, maybe we need to say we've got some extreme thinkers in our party, and those extreme thoughts are not proving themselves to be particularly helpful. And I think that holds true for the other party as well. There's extreme thinkers, and those extreme thinkers are diverting attention and energy and resources in a way that might not be helpful to the overall objectives of the party. So what ends up, I think, ultimately happening is as people start to say, wait a second, we let someone run with less restraint, and you can look at either side, less restraint, and this is where we've ended up. So maybe we need to now say, you know what, those voices might have been too loud, too many, too focused, too distracting, too whatever. And as a result, moving forward, we need to make some new evaluations, some new decisions about how we're going to think and present ourselves, in the future. So I think Kathy's point is certainly there. We got to get these people in the middle to be talking a little bit more about what they have in common. And I think that's the ultimate thing. Now, if spiral dynamics is true, the one thing that we know for certain is that evolution will occur, that progress will occur, that movement towards the next level of thought and values. I think because spiral dynamics is really all about the evolution of values inside of a community. We know that's going to continue to happen, but spiral dynamics also demonstrates that it can happen. What do we say? I want to say quickly, but quickly may not be measured in anybody's lifetime. But if you look at the real span of things that might be happening, it could, change could occur quickly, Change can also be, what I want to say, slowed down, hindered, but in the long run, it cannot be prevented. And so sooner or later, we're going to go up that spiral. Some would like it to be sooner, some would like it to be later, and some might even think that they can actually stop it from happening. So this is where we're at right now. So when it comes to this idea about tension management post-election, oh, go ahead, Edie, go right ahead. You're unmuted.
You know what? I will finish your thought. I won't forget.
Oh no, I have permanent thought
Yeah,
coming.
permanent.
You go right
No,
ahead.
I'm thinking whenever you say being in the center, it's not a matter of all the individuals coming to the center. It's being centered with the balance of what I'll say right brain, left brain thinkers. Is that right?
I think it's both of those things. Yes. I think there's a practical, there's an internal way that it expresses itself. There are external ways that hopefully that internal state leads to. So we all have to find whatever our own piece is, this real center thing. So I would be saying to people right now, this idea about post-election, recognize where the results have put you on the change grid, and even where certain results have put you on the change grid versus other results, and where those have placed you on the change grid. Just become a little bit more aware of where you currently are. And then ask yourself, does that location of on the change grid serve me well moving forward as I deal with the immediate feelings, issues, etc., as I deal or work through the short-term upheaval that's likely to occur, because I think lots of things are going to need to be let's say recounted. Some things are going to be argued about. Who knows what legal things might arise from it. But point is, the days of graceful elections, I don't know that that's really describing today. So there's going to be some stuff that's going to unfold, and we're going to have to deal with it as we work our way through that. We have to ask ourselves, we have to constantly observe, where are we on the change grid, and how well is that position serving me? Well, I don't know that you can determine how well the position is serving you until you decide what it is you really are looking for. So, for example, if right now you are very much upgrid and all you really want to do right now is just get back to life, well, I would suggest to you that as long as you remain upgrid, you may find that state alone as being an interference with you getting back to life as we know it. So how do we help that person then move down grid so they can kind of take new inventory and decide whatever is next? Again, anyone throw in any thoughts you want as I go about doing this, yeah? So point is, there's still a lot of people out there that are energized by it. Now, just because you're energized doesn't mean that energy is being directed in any particularly useful kind of direction. You're just all energized. And that energy could just be unresolved thoughts and feelings and questions and worries and all those kinds of things. It could just be awakening a whole bunch of energy that isn't doing much other than existing. Well, there could still be some people that are trying to influence whatever that situation is, who might be looking for people to make sure that they cure their ballots before time runs out, make sure that their ballots have been counted before time runs out. I mean, there's a lot of different things that people who are trying to influence others are still recommending, or still say this is still a possibility that's out there. And so they might be trying to influence parties to I don't know, file lawsuit, throw out giant question marks, etc. So I get that, but at least that someone's trying to mobilize this energy, focus it. Now they're probably focusing it on behalf of or in the direction of a particular leader. So again, the race that's closest to us is the governor race in Arizona. And so, yeah, you have Carrie Lake, and she's a leader, and she's still got lots of influencers around her that are still trying to get people energized and focus that energy on whatever their current set of, next moves may be. Meanwhile, you've got another group of people who have just, won from their perspective. So these were the ones that the leader happened to be Katie Hobbs. And so they're kind of thinking like right now, what is it, 6 weeks until the transition would occur? I don't really know when do governors actually take the new office. Is it out on January 1st or around there some point in time? Point is, between now and there, you've got a lot of people who are now saying we've won, but now the work begins. So how are we going to transition things? People are going to want to know what's the first thing you're going to do. And so suddenly this leader has got advocators that are trying to influence them to do it. And they've still got their own influencers that are continually working on them. But the issue is different. Rather than trying to save a lost election, it is now more about how do we go about getting the work happening. Obviously, the Hobbs camp does not want to have the chaos that a challenge to the results would lead to, because it distracts them and their energy and their resources from getting ready to do what's going to end up needing to happen next. So now, again, if I was in the the lake camp, I might say maybe we want to stir up a lot of chaos so that if we do nothing else, we undermine Hobbes' ability to position, prepare, etc., for this effortless, hit the ground running kind of thing. Because resources are resources, and if we can get those resources distracted, refocused, consumed by chaos, well, then maybe we'll do that. And as I say that, it's like I don't want to take away that people have legitimate rights to challenge whatever the results may be. But I believe the margin of the win was large enough that there is no automatic recount that would trigger to happen. That has to be within 0.5%. So anyway, so I think that's what's really going to be happening as we look what's going on. You guys have any thoughts about that? Do you think I've described what might be going on in a 50-50 win situation?
Yeah, that seems pretty, sounds right.
Yeah,
Kathy, say what you're going to say.
No, I said I think that sounds about right, and I think that there's still enough tension though, where on both sides there's going to be a lot of influencing. There's going to still be some stress even for the winners because the races are so close. So I think it's not like somebody really won by a landslide and people can kind of take a breath. I think that everybody is still in this state of, oh my God, we're all hanging on by our fingernails. And so the state of tension, I think, is probably still high on both sides, despite a breath of relief by the Democrats on this one.
Well, exactly. And I think what you've pointed out is really a strong reason why the recommendation I think good tension managers would make is so important for Hobbs to understand. I don't know that she does. Obviously, I've never spoken to the gal, but think about this. If you've got a lot of people on the other side of things that are very far up grid about that change, feeling very much out of control, where they're experiencing anger, grief, fear, these sorts of things, that maybe even a little bit of shame because they were supposed to have this red wave that we know didn't happen. So maybe people are starting to point fingers and the blame game begins and on and on. And so there's a little bit of that might be unfolding. Well, if I was Carrie Hobbs, I'm creating whole new people. Katie Hobbs, I would want to be saying to the public, it's true that we won, and we won by a very slim margin. But I want you all to know that I am not just the governor of the Democratic Party. I am the governor of the state of Arizona. And that means that I am just as much of the governor for the half that lost than the half that did. And so now I need to be, I would think, going like, I need, again, I'm Hobbs, I need to do something to help alleviate the tension that this part of the population is experiencing now upgrade. I need to find a way to get my team of influencers to communicate that all is not lost, all is not grim. Yes, I am your governor, but I am your governor. And I'm trying to say that with an inflection that implies the party might have put me here, but my role is to be the governor for every single citizen of this state. I have to represent all of your best interests. And so what do I need to communicate in order to help this population from being marginalized? I don't want them to feel like they lost and now they don't matter, that they lost and now they're going to get pounced upon. There's retail. No, I would want to be able to say to them, I am every citizen of the state's governor, if you'll allow me to be. And so, what is it that I need to do now? Hopefully, she doesn't need to be asking that question from a blank slate perspective. She should already have a clear understanding of what it is that those who wanted Lake were hoping that they would gain with Lake in office. And to a certain degree, again, we know there's extremists and all that sort of thing. So, whichever reasonable part of the population they might be able to speak with and move a little bit, or at least move down grid, so they're a little less preoccupied with the loss, a little bit more open to what's actually going on, what the true needs of the state happens to be. Maybe, just maybe that would work. All right, again, you guys are tension managers. Is that kind of the shape of the advice you would be giving to Hobbes now, given the circumstances as the way they are?
Yeah, I would want to reduce some of that tension. I'd want
Yeah.
to, bring that down a little bit on the other side so that you can move to a point of real conversation. I think what was interesting, and I was thinking about this in those terms when I heard it, about the forced resignation of the fellow who runs the border.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was done on a federal level, but I think that the timing of that might have been an effort, a political effort, obviously, to reduce tension to some degree in those circumstances, as an example.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And again, you're going back to, I don't know if it was you or Tim, we were talking about, we have to find ways to build bridges. We have to find ways to bring people together, because we are at this 50-50 point. And that 50-50 point has to tip. And we know that from the spiral dynamic story, that sooner or later, one way or another, it's going to advance. That being said, if I go down the spiral dynamic and look at some things historically, anyone remember how long the Dark Ages lasted? So, I mean, I would like to go like, yeah, sooner or later it's going to go up, but do we need to go through another Dark Ages before that's going on? Do we have to have this stall or this slip backwards to some point? Is that something we're going to have to go through, or is that optional if we've got better leaders, again, on the spiral dynamic side of things, helping to promote those things at the next level up the spiral would represent? Yeah.
See, I have an example.
Yep. Go ahead, dear.
This morning on the radio, Adrian Fontes had been interviewed. He's the one that won Secretary of State, which in our state is probably the most important position when it comes to approving an election. And in Arizona, it's probably many of you know, a lot of people believe that they don't trust the elections. Meanwhile, Arizona is one of the top in the country. So he during his interview, he said, my first thing on the job, my job, this whole being a Secretary of State, he goes, we are going to educate the public. We are going to show them and tell them the process so that they really understand what the process is. And he's very powerful leader. And And he's made that a point that that would, and Secretary of State is really, a lot of people out before all these things happened with elections, they're paper pushers.
Yeah.
So the power that the Secretary of States have now, and he's pulled together a coalition of Secretary of State, one across the country, nonpartisan, everybody working together, all different, Democratic, Republican, independent, all the Secretary of States to work on how they can show the people what this process really is and how safe and trustworthy it really is.
Excellent. And so, again, from a tension management perspective, what Linda's just illustrated is a downgrade maneuver. So this idea about restoring resources and adding resources is certainly a great way for that leader to now help the population move into the circle, move into the fold, instead of feel in any way marginalized, rejected, discarded, etc. So yeah, our state is going to end up being purple for a while. And so that's okay. Purples means that reds and blues have to harmonize. We have to blend together, or it isn't purple. It's just blotches of red and blue scattered hither and yon. So I think that's a great example Linda put forth. And so Linda, I will be curious to know what your colleagues at Braver Angels will have to say about moving forward to create more of that unity, et cetera. So, and who knows how things will change after the announcement we're all supposed to hear later on this evening. So, but the dynamic from a tension management perspective never changes. The players may change, and the key issues may sort of change, but when it comes to understanding tension management in an election, it is pretty straightforward sorts of things. And we talked about last time around how each of these 8 kind of roles comes into play. The only thing I wanted to add today was that each one of these roles exists with at least 3 different Kodak moments that we can stop and look at and learn from. So those Kodak moments are inside of the green circle, between the green and the red circles, and outside of the red circle. So those are the 3 stopping points, and certainly they're going to be more pronounced if we just look at the 4 corners of it. But it holds true no matter where we look. So even if someone is an advocator, the advocator energy of the role can be done inside of the green circle, and inside of the green circle, all 8 of these roles ideally should be working together as equals. It's interesting when you then look at some of the labels and go, yeah, but by definition, an administrator is subordinate. A helper is subordinate. A follower is subordinate. They might very well be subordinating themselves. But when they come to the table, we know that the contribution that each of these roles bring to that work are equal in value. It will do a leader no good to be an exceptional leader, or powerful influencers and advocates to be as powerful as they can be, if there are no helpers, followers, administrators to come along and actually do the work necessary to support these people. Take these more in-grid roles out of the equation, and this equation is not going to result in a positive outcome. So we need to have this appreciation. And inside of the green circle, there is this appreciation that all 8 of these roles and the other 8 that sit between them, the whole variety of roles that can exist inside of the green circle must be what I'm saying, recognized, respected, acknowledged, appreciated, whatever word you want to put there, because we need them all working together. So that's kind of like the healthiest expression of each of these. Talking about the middle of the change grid, I don't really know that in an election, it is, I'll say, possible, ideal, whatever, for people to be in the exact center. In the exact center, it's almost like the individual no longer exists, because what is separating one from another, what is making one person in any way distinct from another person when you're sitting at the center. It's as though when we find ourselves at the true center of the change grid and we begin to detach ourselves from this reality sort of plane and hover above it and advance beyond it, this shell that we inhabit becomes secondary, and the role that that shell has been serving may become very secondary. So I don't think that's the reality of the dynamics we're likely to encounter when we're talking about an election. So I don't know that anybody's in the exact center. Maybe they are a few. I don't know that they're really participating. They might simply be observing from high above, whatever is going on. But I will tell you, I don't even know that they voted, so because they're floating so high above this riffraff of daily life. So I just want to be inside of the green circle, and that's quite a nice piece of real estate that people can find themselves their way into while continuing to serve the roles they're comfortable serving. So, yeah, now between the red circle and the green circle, we've always said this is where life is lived. Inside of the green circle, this is where the ideal life or the idealized life might actually be able to happen. But between the green and the red, this is real life. And real life is messy. And there are issues and challenges and imbalances and frustrations and thrills, and it's all there. It's all happening between the green circle and the red circle. So this is where life as we know it is actively experienced and dealt with as life goes on. Well, certainly that's where our ability to step into our role and walk that role, work that role becomes far more necessary. So inside of the green circle, the advocator is simply there as an equal to do their thing. But when they are outside of that green circle, they're no longer sitting at a table of equals. They are actively in life. We need them to focus that energy because a very big chunk requires them to, for a moment, step aside the fluidity through which they could move to these others and say, you're an exceptional advocator. This situation needs an exceptional advocator. Can you now go and be the exceptional advocator? And I need to be the leader, and you need to be the influencer, and whatever it is, I might need you to step into this role and stay focused on that role in order to address the issue that is before us. So can you guys kind of all see that's a different expectation, burden, opportunity, whatever we are putting on each of these roles that we could be serving. Yep, fine enough.
Yes, helpful.
Okay, good. And then what the green circle is there just to say to you is warning everybody, there can come a point in time, a set of circumstances under which staying in that role and taking that role to the extreme can become problematic in and of itself. And well, the location of this red circle, by the way, is completely arbitrary. I mean, I know that it's outside of the green circle, but by how far do you have to go in any of these directions before things become truly problematic? Well, I set the location of the red circle simply where I've drawn the danger zones for so long. I've always said that 10-10, draw a vertical line through 10-10. Anything to the right of that would be problematic. Or if we look up grid, we're looking at 2 and 10. Okay, anything above that could be problematic. Here we got 2 and 2. Anything less than that could be problematic. And down here you got 10 and 2. That could be problematic. So it was all because that's where the danger zones were. And if you turn this into its 3 dimensions, that's where these danger zones all come together to form the dark side of the change sphere. So I thought that was all okay. But I don't know if it's exactly there. Maybe it's a little bit more, what do I say, tighter to the center than what it is. Maybe the green circle needs to be tighter. Maybe it needs to stretch out a little bit more. I don't know. All I know is that there are these 3 possible Kodak moments, stopping points along the continuum inside of that role's performance that we could say, that's enough. like if I'm inside the green circle, I don't need you to be a bolder, grander influencer than just this little slice of the pie. But if you're out there dealing with situations in life as we know it, I might need you to up your game. I might need you to become more, I want to say, noticeable, and more noticed. So I don't know, but I will tell you that there could come a point where it's just too much. So the influencer could become too much. The energizer, we already know when that becomes problematic, etc. But even these four that are the in-betweeners can each have their own danger element. Now, if you're going to be literal with the location of the red circle, I'd be saying to you that the only way an advocator can get themselves in real trouble is if they view their ability as being a 12 and the challenge as being precisely a 6. Or, oh no, that's not fair. So they view their ability as a 12, but the challenge could be, I guess, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. So yeah, in which case, what's causing the problem? It's this perception of yourself as having mastered something. Maybe that's the issue, as opposed to, maybe you're the problem, not the situation, is the problem. Because how do I say this? An advocator who is at these coordinates, remember, this is where frustration, resentment comes into play. They might say very cutting things. They might damage they might turn people off. They might push leaders away. They might insult thinkers. They gotta watch themselves. Similarly, the influencer might view the challenges being so high that they're just out there pushing and pushing and pushing in whatever way it takes. That can end up becoming problematic in and of itself. And so, to kind of bring this to a bit of closure, I would say to you that following an election, if we are pulled into it as tension managers, or we have the opportunity to serve other people from this tension management perspective, we have to know that moving people to the center is the first job that we all have. Once they find themselves back in the center, and by the way, I'm not even talking about the exact center, just get inside of the green circle and we can move forward from there. But I gotta move you into the interior of the change grid so that you can see things more clearly, appreciate the facts for as they are, recognize that particularly in the world of elections, nothing is forever. Even people who were, I don't know, had dynastic sort of influence over regions for generations or whatever, they're not around anymore. And so things change. So a given election should never be viewed as being the war. It is simply a battle. And why can't it just be, not even a battle, why can't elections just be strong arguments put forth by intelligent, informed people who all share the same vision for what the future should actually be. And the future it doesn't necessarily have to be every little detail, but maybe we just say, whatever our future is, our future has to be exemplified by mutual respect, by an appreciation for one another's perspectives, a desire to learn from one another, a desire to be open and receptive to other ideas, willing to set aside one's fears in order to see things more clearly, set aside one's ambitions in order to see what is clearly. I mean, if we can just do that, maybe we can end up with a better election moving forward, and certainly more informed voters, more informed electors moving forward. Okay, that's what I wanted to cover as far as elections are concerned. Anyone have any final thoughts you might want to throw out on the subject? Yeah, no? So again, it's not over. It's not over. It's not over. There's still stuff that's going to be happening, but these dynamics we've talked about on the change grid will hold true, no matter what situation we find ourselves in moving forward. Okay, with that, Kathy, any thoughts?
No, just thank you. I think that was really helpful, useful, and December will tell more. But yeah, thank you very much. I think
You're
this is
welcome.
it's a long road, but it's a good way to
It's a long road, and if we can just simplify that road just by saying, like, look, we understand tension. And we understand that elections, with all due respect to how important they are to our democracy and all that, it really is just a bit of it's a game. It's an exercise we go through. It is an exercise in tension management, and ultimately winning is a reflection of how well you manage that level of productive tension. All right, with that, thank you all very much for joining in. We'll be back in touch. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.